May karakter, malinis at may prinsipyong tinatayuan. Walang bahid ang panunungkulan at hindi sangkot sa anumang katiwalian. May paninindigan. Maaasahang ipaglalaban ang katarungan at katotohanan. Hindi napapako ang pangako. Tapat sa salita at gawa. Hindi sinungaling. Iniingatan ang karapatang pantao sa pagpapatupad ng batas. Matibay ang loob. Walang kinikilingan o sinasanto. Kahit makapangyarihan o mga kaibigan.
Pumili ka ng mga lider na may kakayahan, may takot sa Diyos, at mapagkakatiwalaan at di masusuhulan.
May kakayahan. Kakayahang magsulong ng pagbabago. Nag-aral at may sapat na kasanayan. Karanasan at kaalaman sa posisyong hinahangad. Nagpapakita na ng kahusayan sa pagpapatakbo ng isang sangay ng gobyerno o anumang kumpanya o institusyon. May maliwanag na plataporma para sa pag-unlad ng ekonomiya. At may karanasan na sa paglutas ng iba't ibang suliranin ng bansa. Marunong pumili ng mga tapat at mahuhusay na taong tutulong sa kanya sa pamamahala. May political will na ipatupad ang batas at panagutin ang mga korap na kawatan sa ating gobyerno.
Maging matalino sa pagboto, tulong-tulong tayo sa pagbabago.
May commitment. Malawak at malalim ang kakayahang makipag-ugnayan para sa ikabubuti ng bayan. Malapit sa mga maliliit at kumukonsulta sa mga mamamayan para sama-samang solusyonan ang mga suliranin ng bansa. May tiwala ang mga tao sa kanya. Kaya nagagawang humingi ng tulong sa iba't ibang sektor upang tugunan ang pangangailangan ng bayan. Napapaligiran ng mga kaibigan at kaalyadong hindi mga magnanakaw at naghahangad din ng ikabubuti ng bayan.
maging matalino sa pagboto, tulong-tulong tayo sa pagbabago.
Katiwala. Tayo ang tagapamahala ng Diyos. Ito ang dahilan bakit niya tayo nilikha ayon sa kanyang wangis. Dahil tayo ay mga Pilipino, tayo ang tagapamahala ng ating bansa. Bilang tagapamahala, sundin natin ang kalooban ng Diyos. Itaguyod ang tama, tutulan ang mali. Pangarap. Pangarap ng bawat Pilipino ang isang makatarungan at makataong lipunan. May kaginhawahan, may pagmamalasakitan, may kapayapaan. Sa tulong ng Diyos, makakamit natin ito sa pamamagitan ng tamang pagboto. Pangarap, sama-samang buuin. Boto, sama-samang ipanalangin. Kapangyarihan. Tayo ang sambayan ng Pilipino. Tayo ang may kapangyarihan sa bansa. Ang pagboto ay kapahayagan ng ating kapangyarihan. Bilang tagapamahala ng Diyos, huwag nating sayangin ito. Sagrado ang ating boto. Huwag magpaloko, maging matalino.
Good afternoon. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Magandang welcome po sa Faith and Politics ngayong araw na ito. Ang ating topic for this episode ay Bakit Puti ang kulay ng politika sa iglesia. At para po sa ating mga viewers, ini-encourage po namin kayo to share our live stream on their personal FB pages, their FB community pages, at saka pakishare din po sa ating mga family and friends ang live stream na ito para po tayo ay sabay-sabay na matuto at mapaglinang ang ating teolohika at ang ating pananampalataya. Para po sa kaalaman ng lahat, tayo po ay live din sa iba't ibang FB pages, sa Faith and Politics, sa ISAC, sa Cross Currents, sa Truth, or sa InterVarsity Christian Fellowship, sa Campus Crusade for Christ, and sa Philippine Ecumenical Peace Forum. Papapanood din po ang ating episode na ito sa Light TV every Wednesday at 1 to 2 p.m. At aming reminders din po, ang ating Faith and Bayan book ay ready for your orders. Para rin po sa mga magtatanong today at tonight, magpabigay po kami ng mga libro para po inyong karagdagang kaalaman. Sumali po kayo at ini-encourage po namin kayo magpadala po ng mga tanong sa ating mga presenters. At bilang panimula po sa gabing ito, tinatawag po natin si Dr. Aldrin Penamora para po siya ang mag-lead sa atin ng welcome prayer. Dr. Aldrin.
Hello. Magandang gabi po sa bawat isa. Isa na naman pong napakahalaga na paksang ating pag-uusapan. At we are very blessed na narito po ang ating presenter at ang ating responder, si Professor Ray, ang ating presenter with Dr. Mara Pilado na magbibigay ng tugon. Bago po tayo magpatuloy ay tayo ay manalangin. Panginoon, samahan niyo po kami, O God, sa oras na ito. Nawa po, Lord, ang aming mga mapag-uusapan ay maging kaaya-aya at kapuri-puri sa inyo at amin pong dalangin na maging makabuluhan at tunay na makatulong sa aming iglesia at sa aming bansa ang mga lessons, Lord, na aming matutunghayan at matututunan sa event na ito. Muli po, salamat sa iyo po lahat ng papuri. Ito po ang aming dalangin sa pangalan mo, aming Diyos, Heso Kristo. Amen. Thank you. Sukha.
Para po sa ating presenter for tonight, ay sa ating topic na bakit puti ang kulay ng ating iglesia. Politika sa iglesia. Si Professor Ray Lemuel Crisaldo. Professor Ray Lemuel Crisaldo is passionate about creative arts. Writing is his chosen medium of expression. He is a published author and has been a recipient of the Filipino Reader's Choice Award. He is a staunch advocate of integral mission for MICA Philippines with the hope of seeing church networks, theological training institutions, to deepen their Christian engagement with and justice-related issues. He joined their fund in 2018 to serve as their theological education for the East and Southeast Asia. And most recently, he joined the World Evangelical Alliance to coordinate its International Theological Commission. He is a life teacher with degrees in both theology and mass communication. And finally, he has published papers centering on doing public theology in the digital space from a decolonial perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome our presenter, Professor Ray Lemuel Crisaldo.
Isang makulay na araw sa bawat isa at isang napakalaking karangalan ang maging kabahagi nitong Faith and Politics na webinar series and also a project na magpamulat, magpalalim pa ng pagninilay natin, hindi lang pagninilay, yung ating pagkilos patungkol sa politika at ang ating nais tanungin at sagutin sa gabing ito ay bakit nga ba kulay puti ang kulay ng politika sa iglesia at dapat nga bang kulay na puti Hayaan niyo akong mag-share ng aking screen let me see. Okay. Yan. Okay. So, gusto kong umpisahan yung ating kwentuhan, yung ating natalakayan sa isang issue Kung maaalala nyo, siguro ilang taon na nakakalipas, pero patuloy pa rin itong lumulutang minsan nasabi ni Senator Manny Pacquiao nasabi niya on the issue of death penalty sabi niya biblically binigyan ng Panginoon ng karapatan ang gobyerno to use capital na punishment. Even Jesus Christ, nasintensyahan siya ng kamatayan dahil ang government nag-impose talaga ng kamatayan. So ito yung kanyang isang snippet na na-quote ng maraming media outlets patungkol sa kanyang natindig patungkol sa death penalty o parusang kamatayan. Ngayon, umani siya ng napakadaming batikos dyan. Sabi nila, dapat kasi hindi natin masyadong pinapakinggan yung isang tao na hindi naman ganun kalalim ang sasabihin nating expertise sa Biblia tapos gagawa siya ng mga batas at panukala na nakabatay ngayon, ginagamit ng parang basihan, ang salita ng Diyos, no? Mostly nanggaling ang mga reaksyon sa mga anti-death penalty, no? Sinasabi hindi napakalinaw naman, di ba? Sabi sa 10 utos, huwag kang papatay. Bakit natin gagamitin ang death penalty para supuin ang mga pumapatay ng tao, no? Parang self-defeating na ano yan, no? Na argument. Ang medyo hindi napansin ng madami, hindi naman inimbento lang ni Senator Manny yung kanyang sinabi. Actually, kung susuriin niyo, may mga evangelicals na yun talaga ang stand sa death penalty. No? Actually, si Dr. Al Mohler, isang presidente ng isang napakalaking seminaryong ebangheliko sa US, ito yung sabi niya, no? In Genesis chapter 9 verse 6, God told Noah that the penalty for intentional murder should be death. No? The one who intentionally takes a life by murder forfeits the right to his own life. So sa North America, maraming yan na position. No? And they are using similar na passages sa scriptures na ginamit ni Senator Manny, maybe the same arguments din to bolster their position, no, sa parusang kamatayan, no. Maaring tanungin niyo ang mga evangelicals ba sa Pilipinas ano ang tindig, no? Noong 1999 ang PCEC nagpalabas siya ng statement, no, isang position paper on death penalty. I think pinag-uusapan din ang usaping capital punishment noon. At itong sinabi nila, no, we uphold the principle of lex talionis or life for life, no. The punishment must fit the crime. The punishment must be commensurate to the gravity of the offense. Yung petty theft should be punished with a short-term na prison term. Yung capital crimes naman, those that lead to the loss of other lives, dapat yan, capital punishment din. Similar sa sinabi ni Dr. Mohler, a man who takes the life of another forfeits his own. Ano? So maaaring tanongin nyo, naku, ganun ba yung stand ng PCEC? Ano bang stand ng PCEC ngayon? No? Noong 2017, especially nang maupo ang Pangulong Duterte, no? At dumami na ang instances of EGK na pag-usapan muli yung parusang kamatayan. And kailangan ngayong maglabas ng panibagong statement sa mga kakatanungan. Sabi ng PCEC, PCEC upholds firmly its na previous statement on death penalty. So yung 1999, no? We maintain that the death penalty and the sanctity of human life are not contradictory. No? However, the present state of the justice system makes it difficult to guarantee the government's duty to wield the sword would be upheld with full integrity. Ergo, the reports sapagkat thus the PCEC cannot support the present call to reimpose capital punishment in the country. So ang naging argument rito ng PCEC hindi yung biblical arguments, no? Kasi in-affirm nga nila yung 1999. But the contextual situation, no, na hindi safe na gamitin natin i-implement yung policy ng death penalty. So basically what I'm trying to show here is that yung usapan ng mga babatikos noon about sa death penalty, there's a global conversation happening, no? And hindi lang si Manny Pacquiao, hindi lang ilang evangelicals, kundi may stream of people who actually think so, no? So anong ibig sabihin diyan? Ang isang ibig ko sabihin dito is that marami pang pwedeng issues, political issue at advocacy na maaring bitbit ang mga simbahan, pero galing lang din yun sa ibang bansa, no? Taking the cue from other countries, most notably sa United States of America, na kung patitingnan mo yung advocacy, parallel o mirror image ng Republican o tinatawag nating moral majority. Usually ang preoccupation about gender issues, no? Ngayong election, no? Hindi na natin kailangan lumayo. Ngayong election, lumabas tong isang isang parang gabay sa pagboto. Sabi niya, napakalinaw naman dito kung sino ang iyong dapat iboto, no? Sino yung naninindigan sa, sabihin nating biblical, which siguro they mean conservative na values on the issues of marriage, no, as expressed in divorce and policies on same-sex marriage, and even on pagiging pro-life o yung issue ng abortion. So di pwede kung sino titingin nitong gabay na to, para tong Rorschach test, no? Pagka nandun ka sa wing na yon na mabigat ang iyong nadiin sa conservative positions on gender, kita mo naman daw na malinaw kung sino yung dapat mong iboto on the basis of this very important na gender issues. Ano? Depende naman kung ikaw naman ay hindi ka bilang doon sa conservative stream. Malinaw din sa sinong iiwasan mo, no? At sino yung sasabihin natin mas open-minded, no, sa mga kandidato, no? But the point is, pinut forward to as the issue for you to make a decision ngayong election, no? Whereas, sa tingin ko, hindi ito yung historical nating issue bilang isang bansa. Issue to ng ibang bansa. Ang issue natin, historically, no, ay ang muling pagbabalik sa kapangyarihan ng isang pamilya na talaga namang nilustay, no? Ang pera, sabi mo nga kabuhayan ng buong sambayanan kasi ng gobyerno. At hanggang ngayon, hindi pa nila naisibalik at under the drag lahat ng na conversation kung paano may bababalik yung mga stolen wealth, no? Nag-quote ako sa isang newspaper, baka sabihin bias ako eh. Kaya ang kinote ko na mismo itong newspaper na masasabi natin hindi bias, no? Convicted na may kailangang isoli, no? Na merong ninakaw. So the point I'm trying to make here is that pwede tayong ma-hijack ng mga issue na hindi naman nakaugat sa issue natin bilang isang bansa, bilang isang bayan. Meron tayong mga issue mas kinakaharap. Pero bakit pa nahuhumaling tayong maging basehan natin ng ating pagpapasya, yung masasabi nating mainit na tinatalakay at pinag-aawayan sa ibang bansa. Pero yung dapat nating tinatalakay at pinag-uubusan natin ng atensyon, hindi natin masyadong natitingnan. Ano? So, kung tutuusin kasi yung issue ng gender, ano? Nitong GMA nag-put together siya ng isang napakahusay na parang material. Mahanap ito online. Type nyo lang our progressive past, no? Yung isa nating kaibigan si Professor Bot Hocano, no? Ang anak ng limaong Professor Hocano sa UP ay contributor na pinakita kung paano yung gender, hindi natin issue yan bilang isang bayan. Kasi pag binasa nyo itong sanaysay nila, makikita nyo how advanced we are in the thinking in terms of gender. No? Iiwan natin yung mga pinag-iiwanan ngayong mga issue. No? Isang instance na, no? Yung ating gender roles and sexuality, ang creation story natin. Wala tayong issue ng sinong mas mataas, yung lalaki o babae. Kasi nung nabiyak yung kawayan, sabay doon. Yung lalaki sa akin, babae, si malakas sa kasi maganda. No? And marami pa kayong pwedeng makuha dyan. No? So, maganda yung sinabi ni Andrea Little Mason, isang Black African. Sabi niya, we need to realize when even our wokeness is colonized. Baka yung pagiging activist natin, no, yung pagiging mapolitika natin sa buhay, hindi natin napapansin, imported din at galing sa ibang bansa. Ano? Ang nagpapatakbo ng ating maaring sentimento sa loobin. Maaari nating sabihin na ang ating bayan is suffering at maaari ang ating iglesia, no, suffering from a kind of coconut political na theology. Ibig sabihin nun, kulay brown sa labas, pero sa loob kulay puti. Kaya ang ating topic ng ating webinar ngayon ay puting politika. At ang nais nating hanapin, paano kaya tayo makaka-move from a coconut theology into something na talagang sa labas brown, sa loob din pa din brown. Parang sabi natin na yung Chico, no? How do we go there? Ano? Paano tayo pupunta doon, no? Itong sticky problem na to, no? Mga kapatid, mga kakababayan, ang kailangan nating i-confront, no? This is the elephant in the room. O ito yung nangangamoy na nabubulok sa ilalim ng ating mga basahan, yung colonial mentality. At na hindi ko na kayang i-improve kung paano dinescribe ni Mrs. F, no? Ang ating mahusay na manunulat mula sa evangelical community. Kung anong ibig sabihin ng colonial mentality. Ang sabi niya, we are too colonially minded, forgetting what is good and beneficial and constructive for ourselves as a nation. Nationalist historian Renato Constantino calls this our tragic miseducation. Our miseducation is so deeply entrenched that to many of us, our Christian faith seems not like the Christian faith, if at all, if not garbed in Western clothes, Western programs, Western liturgies, and Western money. No? The theologies predominantly taught to us are interpretations of Western minds of biblical truths as they relate to Western contexts. Yet, we gladly accept them in toto as if they fit our own culture. No? We lap up all the methodologies and semantics uncritically, forgetting our people's sensibilities, culture, worldview, and spirituality. Too often, sabi ni Mrs. F, the so-called Christian leaders live, behave, and speak the language of their Western tutors or benefactors, altogether alienating themselves from the rest of their countrymen, if not physically and geographically, but also in thought and perspective. Sinulat siya ni Mrs. F doon sa kanyang aklat na The Filipino Values and the Christian Faith. Maraming taon nang nakakalipas, pero similarly dinidescribe pa din ang sitwasyon natin ngayon. So, paano tayo uusad dyan? No? Paano tayo pwedeng tumawid? No? Itong colonial mentality na to, no, it afflicts not only our na theology, but also our na politics. At kung theology magpa-politics, di the same pa din. Colonial pa din yung paghuhugutan. At kapag na-fusion yung dalawa, no, our political na theology, it will now demand a close attention sa maaari mga solusyon na ino-offer ng mga kumikilos kung paano natin i-undo itong colonial influence at mentality na ito. Of which today, may dalawang stream na pwede nating pagpilian. Yung post-colonial approaches at yung mga decolonial options. No? So, let me quickly differentiate the two. No? A point of intersection ng post-colonial sa decolonial, shared aspiration na makalaya ang mga tao sa mga bagay na umaalipin sa kanila, sa mga nakakadena sa kanila. No? Ang point of diversion doon maghihiwalay, no? Yung kasing post-colonial, meron siyang link, hindi naman lahat, pero meron siyang link sa thought patterns and even notions na associated with modernity. Isa na dyan yung paggamit ng critical theory at ng Marxist social analysis, no? Kung saan isa to sa mariing kinututulan ng mga nasa decolonial approaches, no? Kasi yung modern worldview is a product of the Enlightenment, which is basically a Western na project. So hindi lubos ang magiging kalayaan mo kung doon ka pa rin umaasa ng iyong pag-iisip, no? Mula sa South America, mayroong dalawang magaling na scholar na nagkasuggest. So, paano tayo mag-unlink? Ang term na ginagamit, uncoupling. Sabihin, paano tayo mag-uncoupling? I-uncouple mo. Paghihiwalayin mo yung utak mo sa utak na umiiral ngayon. No? Ang sabi ni Walter Mignolo, kailangan daw natin ng epistemic disobedience. No? Kung paano tayo tinuruang mag-isip, we need to disobey it. No? Maging rebelde tayo sa ganung klase ng mindset. No? Mas malupit si Enrique Dussel. No? Sa kanya, sabi niya, ang kailangan natin hindi lang disobedience, kailangan natin epistemic insurrection kasi lubos yung pagkakagapos sa isip natin kung paano tayo mag-isip at hindi tayo makawala doon sa worldview na yon. Siguro a quick personal story, no. Dati meron akong boss, no. Pinagbasa niya ako ng aklat ng Tagalog, no. Sabi niya tatapusin mo to in 1 week, no. So nakalipas ang 2 linggo hindi ko matapos, no. Tapos 1 buwan. Natapos ko din naman, no? Nung ibinalik ko sa kanya, sabi ko, tapos ko na po. Tapos sabi niya, bakit tagal mong binasa? Sabi ko, honestly po, medyo nahirapan ako. Tapos in-explain niya sa akin kung bakit. Sabi niya, alam mo ang nangyayari sa'yo. No? Nung binabasa mo tong Tagalog na aklat na to, habang binabasa mo sa Tagalog, tinatranslate mo sa English para maintindihan mo. Saka mo ngayon ibabalik sa Tagalog. Sabi ko, oo nga po, no? Parang ang ganon. Bakit po ganon? Kasi sabi niya, kasi ang isip mo, yung utak mo, ang mental na furniture sa meron ka, lahat in English. All labeled in English. So, kailangan mo siyang i-translate, kaya mas mabagal. So, ibig sabihin, kung ang wika mo ay English, so yung pattern of thinking mo is also in English. So, yung pagsasalin is one thing, yung pag-unawa is another thing. Kaya maintindihan ko sinasabi dito ni Mignolo sa ni Dosel na disobedience at insurrection. Ano? So, paano tayo makakawala doon? No? Dito pwedeng pumasok yung pag-intindi sa kondisyon ng decoloniality. Sabi ni Dr. Emoyango, sabi niya, hindi naman actually alien sa atin yung decolonial conditions, yung pagde-decolonize, no? Kasi kung iisipin mo, sasakyan mo yung idea na nandoon na tayo, wala na, tapos na ang era ng modernity, no? Nandoon na tayo sa after the period of modernity. Actually gumawa siya ng isa pong presentation at paper available to online at paano yung ipinapakita niya na yung postmodern condition at yung indigenous pathways are basically similar and the same. Kasi sabi niya, tayo mga nasa Asia, we don't need to be postmodern because we have always been in that condition. Kailangan lang nating balikan yun, no? Yung indigenous pathway na yun. And para mabalikan mo yun, no? May sinasabi si Ate Lily Mendoza, you need to recognize that there's a wound. There's a colonial wound in you. At ako ang dating sa akin ng colonial wound, nung na-realize ko yun, no? Oo nga, no? Yung mental furnitures ko sa utak, English lahat. So lahat kailangan Tagalog, tinatranslate ko sa English. That is how I am colonized as a person. Kaya kung magtatanong po kayo, bakit ko piniling sumulat sa Taglish, yung aking mga aklat, that is my own attempt to heal my colonial wound. Mag-isip ako sa ating wika. Of course, hindi ko kaya agad diretso, no? Kasi English nga eh. So sinubukan ko muna sa Taglish, no? Inumpisahan ko doon, no? Maaring hindi naman yun ang maaring na final na hakbang, no? So I hope nag-guess no, there's a condition of decoloniality na pwede nating pasukin, ano po. So, ito yung ang problema natin, no, sa ating topic ngayon. Paano tayo magde-develop ng isang political theology na decolonial yung orientation sa commitment? Pero, within the evangelical context, maaari may magtanong, pwede bang maghalo yun? Yung decolonial at evangelical, may magsasabi din na yung evangelical is actually a product of a modern enlightenment na worldview. Ano? So ako po, nais kong sabihin na pwede naman. No? Okay naman. Pwede nating subukan kasi hindi mo malalaman kung hindi mo pwedeng subukan. Ano? So, kailangan lang matibay yung pwede mong tuntungan. So, ang grounding natin, ano yun? No? So, magbubuo ka ng isang panibagong paraan o balangkas ng isip, isang matibay na natuntungan. Siguro mag-umpisa tayo sa sinasabi ni Father Jaime Bolataw na ang mga Pilipino may pambihirang kakayahan. Kaya daw nating mabuhay sa isang bahay at matulog sa iba. Live in one house and sleep in another. Ibig sabihin, we can develop a split kind of mindset. No? Iba yung ating iniisip, iba din yung ating ginagawa. No? Iba yung ating sinasabi nating revered as an ideal or maaring dogma. Pero iba din yung, sa totoong buhay, hindi naman pwedeng ganyan. Ang term na dyan na ginamit ay split leveling ng ating Christianity. So, ibig sabihin yan, kung magte-theologize tayo, hindi po pwedeng yung malalagay lang sa revered ideas. No? Kailangan yung theology na kakapit sa buhay. Kasi pag hindi kumapit sa buhay, ano lang yun? Mauwi lang tayo dyan sa split leveling of Christianity. No? Because we have, actually I would even say na hindi nga lang split. The Filipinos have the capacity to have a multiple commitments, no? All at the same time. Hindi natin kailangan pumili. Hindi natin kailangan pumili. No? And dito papasok yung pag-unawa natin na yung pag-ando natin ng colonial mindset. It is a process of healing that involves a shedding and a shredding of our colonial wineskins. Kailangan may pag-recognize na meron kang kailangang hubarin. Kasi kung wala kang kailangang hubarin, walang mangyayari. No? Hindi ka makakausad. Meron dapat na kamalayan. No? Sa evangelical community, meron bang pwede tayong tuntungan? Kasi siyempre, sabihin nyo, si Father Jaime from the Roman Catholic Church. No? So actually, naghanap ako ng mga impulse, no? Mga lukso, no? Mga nabugso. At ang marirecommend ko na pwede nating pag-umpisahan, i-anchor natin yung ating pag-decolonize doon sa notion of rootedness. No? as applied to contextual theologizing. Kasi may mga nagawa na dito, no? Isa diyan yung ambag ni aking mentor, si Dr. Melba Magay. Kaya suggest yung theological rerouting, yung pagbabalik loob. Kailangan bumalik tayo sa kung sino tayo bilang isang tao. Mahanap natin yon, no? Meron siyang lagi binabanggit na deep structures, no? Kailangan nating kumabit doon sa deep structures. Hindi lang yung surface structures na maaring natabunan ng kung ano-anong mga influences. Si Dr. Tim Henner, ang kanya namang sabihin nating improvisation doon sa idea ni Dr. Magay, yung pag-iba ng isang letra. Sa halip na rerouting lang, tama din naman, but sabi niya, kailangan din after mo ng rerouting, kailangan mo ng rerouting. No? Kailangan mo ng pagbabagong loob. Hindi lang yung pagbabalik loob, kundi pagbabagong loob. So dalawang move yan. Magbabalik loob ka, hahanapin mo yung sarili mo. At sa pagbabalik loob na yon, ma-experience mo yung pagbabago ng kalooban. Kaya nga ang sinasabi ko minsan, yung decolonial na process na pinagdaanan ko, it's like being born again. No? So, it's like being born again. Sabihin, mas nakikilala mo ang iyong commitment sa Diyos saka sa Panginoong Jesus because mas binabalikan mo yung pagkatao kung saan tayo inilagay ng Diyos. No? At yung imagination na yan na pwedeng ibigay sa'yo pag nagbagong loob ka, yan yung magigain mo. Actually, I will say na yung colonial na mga theologizing are actually yung mga theologizing na suffering from a destituted sense of imagination. Sabihin yung sense of imagination mo ni walang halaga. No? Ginawang walang kabuluhan. Ginawang hindi maganda, hindi magaling, pangit, hindi pwedeng ilaban sa pangmalakasan, no? Weak, no? That's a destituted sense of na imagination, no? At sa theology, ang ibig sabihin nan ay hindi lang yung pagbabago kung how we interpret the Bible, yung pagbabasa ng scriptures, no? But more so with our parameters of imagination, yung lawak ng ating imagination na pwedeng magbukas ng mga panibagong paraan ng interpretasyon o pagbabasa ng Biblia o pag-engage sa salita ng Diyos na iba sa inimpose sa ininculcate sa atin sa mga seminaryo, sa mga aklat na binabasa natin. Yan, mga aklat na yan, ano? So, yung colonial theologies, maaaring bigyan kanya ng destituted sense of imagination. Lagi kong naka-encounter na ang tanong ng mga nakakausap kong pastor kapag talakayang katulad nito. Ray, meron ba talaga tayong pwedeng balikan? Sinasabi na yan ni Dr. Magay na pagbabalik loob, may babalikan ba tayo? Sino ba ang Pilipino? No? Meron ba talagang Pilipino? No? So, actually, I think yung tanong na yun ay isang tanong na nanggagaling doon sa sinasabi kong destituted sense of imagination. No? So, dahil ako po ay artist, so nanggagaling ako sa creative arts. No? Ang aking suggestion bilang pangunang hakbang sa pagbabago ng ating imagination, yung malapit sa bituka. Pagkain tayo pumunta. Ang ating data na gagamit, siyempre sa lahat ng pagsusuri, kailangan mo ng data. No? I given you a framework kanina, ngayon yung ating data. Ang data na aking sinasuggest, pagkain. Kasi sabi ni Doreen Fernandez, yung author nitong isang celebrated na aklat papatungkol sa Philippine culinary arts, sabi niya, yung food daw, it provides a key to the understanding of national identity. The study of food as culture within the context of colonization leads to an understanding of the fate of the local culture under hegemony of the dominant cultures of the colonizers. Gusto mo daw maintindihan kung paano tayo na-colonize at kung paano din tayo nagpumiglas sa colonization na yon? Huwag lang natin kainin yung ating pagkain. Pag-isipan natin kung ano yung ating mga na kinakain. I will say that may isang popular po kasi na quotation among the decolonial scholars, yung decoloniality is not a metaphor. No? Ang dagdag ko dyan, yes, but it is also edible. Kailangan nakakain yung decoloniality. Sabihin, meron siyang impact agad sa buhay mo. No? And isipin natin yung pagkain has been a principal tool of colonization. No? Pagka binasa niyo po yung mga accounts kung paano nung inimport dito yung mga ibang mga gulay at prutas, nag-iba yung dynamics at hindi lang sa ating bansa, sa ibang bansa sa South America, yung pag-import ng ibang species ng pagkain has been a tool to colonize people, no? Kasi nawala yung kanilang traditional na pagkain. But at the same time, yung food can be a primary means of resistance towards this colonization. And a recognition na yung pagkain is both na food is both history, kasaysayan, nandyan sa ating nilulunok at ninunguya at nagbumubuhay sa atin. And at the same time, is a sense of identity. No? Ano isang mga halimbawa natin dyan? No? Paano pwedeng bumukas ang ating mga imahinasyon? Unahin natin yung sapin-sapin kasi very dear sa akin itong sapin-sapin kasi kami sa church nung kami ay nag-decolonize ng aming Lord's Supper, no? Inanyayahan namin yung mga kananayan sa amin na magluto ng ating mga kakanin, no? Yung puto, kutsinta, no? Tapos minsan may nagluto ng sapin-sapin. Yun ang aming pinagsaluhan sa aming Lord's Supper, no? Tapos napaka-meaningful nung ina-analyze namin yung sapin-sapin kasi iba-ibang kulay yun, di ba? Different colors. Pero they are sticking together, no? So, makikita mo din hindi yung unity in diversity but yung diversity in unity, no? Hindi kailangan iisa yung kulay, hindi kailangan ng osya laging kulay white, no? Pwede magkaroon ng ibang kulay ang ating kinakain dahil ang body of Christ actually is full of colors, no? Hindi lang kulay white, no? Kailangan tanungin natin yung bakit kulay puti ang osya natin, no? Ang ibig sabihin niyan, ang ating pag-iisip sa theology, tapos siguro gawin nating plural, no? Ang project dito sa Faith and Bayan is humanap daw tayo ng Filipino evangelical na theology o politics, no? I would suggest hindi lang pwedeng theology lang, singular, theologies, no? At huwag tayong matakot kung madami, no? Dahil mas madami, mas masaya, ano? So lipat tayo sa halo-halo, mas madami, mas masaya. Ang isip agad kapag madami, di kailangan mong i-integrate yung napakadami niya, napakahirap namang i-integrate niya. Actually, yung halo-halo, ang pinagkaiba ng sa shake, di ba? Ang shake pag binilend mo, maghahalo na doon lahat yung kulay, no? Hindi mo na ngayon madidistinguish. Pero ang halo-halo, ang genius ng halo-halo, ano? Kita mo, hahaluin mo siya, pero nandun pa din lahat yung mga ingredients, no? Everything ng mga matamis, no? Everything ng mga nutty, everything ng mga beans, no? Hahaluin mo siya pero nandun pa din yung distinguishing mark ng bawat ingredients ng halo-halo, no? So hindi mo siya hinalo actually na parang nilusaw mo yung mga elemento. Hinalo mo siya na magkakasama sila. Hindi integration yun but multiplicity. Hinahayaan mo at ina-appear mo yung kaibahan, pagkakaiba ng mga bagay-bagay. So it takes a kind of imagination to be comfortable with such a diversity and to be able to affirm such na differences, no? And lastly, yung adobo, no? Yung adobo kasi nakakatuwa yan, di ba? Meron kang sumulat ng aklat, di ba? Parang the 100 versions of adobo sa Pilipinas, no? At anong tinuturo sa atin yan? Ibig sabihin, kung yung ating isang pinagmamalaking pagkain, yung adobo, by the way, may mga diskurso dyan kung galing daw ba sa Mexico o galing daw ba sa Spain. Pero meron din mga scholar na nagsasabi na ang adobo, hindi yung pagkain, pero yung paraan natin ng paghahanda ng pagkain, which is ang ating base, suka. Hindi yun yung base ng mga taga-Mexico. So it's something unique sa atin, no, yung adobo. Nga lang, as you will know, there are different kind of adobo as there are different kind of households, no. May adobong puti, may adobong tuyo. Ang nanay ko po pa nag-adobo, nilalagyan ng crumpled na crackers para daw lumapot yung sabaw. It's her adobo, no. Ang point ko po is that pag kasi ang mindset mo kailangan mong i-control, no. Sa colonial mindset, kailangan mong i-control yung pagkakaiba-iba, no? Kailangan mong ma-figure out yung forma. Kasi kung walang forma, hindi mo makokontrol eh. Pero sanay tayo doon. Alam natin ng adobo kahit may mga halo pa yan na kung ano-ano. Ngayon may mga modern versions of adobo. But still, we know if adobo is a faithful adobo. No? We have a way of knowing. And the way of knowing is not controlling. No? So, baka kailangan yung orthodoxy, ibahin natin. We start to think of a fluid orthodoxy or a dynamic orthodoxy, no? So ito yung pinapakita ko dito, yung mga pwedeng tuntungan natin, no, sa pagbabago ng ating imagination on how we think, because how we think, yung ating kamalayan, no, yan ang ating pwedeng maging panimula, ano. Yung sabi ni Ma'am Doreen, no, Fernandez, yung daw food, yung cuisine, nag-survive siya sa colonization. Either unchanged in its traditional ways, indigenous, or slightly changed in its contact with dominant culture through the indigenization of foreign influences. And sabi niya, it offers much hope, no? For stories, art, Filipino stories, Filipino art, Filipino cultures, which many have feared are too fragile to survive modernity in global times. Ang pangarap ko po, hindi lang sa stories, art, and cultures. Sana pati sa kamalayan natin, sa Diyos, at sa ating spiritualidad, masurvive natin yung mga bagay na yan. So anong mga pwede nating imperatives, mga dapat nating gawin, no? Tatlong bagay po ang nais kong i-suggest, no? Una, kailangan siguro nating maging comfortable, sabi ko nga po sa inyo kanina, no? Doon sa diversities. Pwede tayong lumayo sa nakasanayan, no? We need to rediscover our spirituality of revolution. No, yung ating pong kasaysayan, no, as a people, kasama doon yung isang uprising, no, na nakaangkla, no, nakaugat hindi lang sa aspiration na lumaya ang ating bayan, pero doon sa isang faith conviction na kaya niyang bigyan ng spiritual foundation yung pag-wage ng isang revolusyon against an empire, no. There are studies kung paano ang ating mga katipunero, no, isang pananalig sa Diyos, no, yung naging parang source nila, ang driving force nila at driving energy nila kung bakit sila nagsagawa ng isang revolusyon. So, magtaas tayo ng kilay. Dalawang kilay siguro, no? Kung mga magsasabi dapat ng Kristyanismo apolitical. Sa ating kasaysayan, hindi apolitical means dapat wala daw politika. Hindi totoo 'yun. Ang Kristyanismo natin sa Pilipinas very much woven into our political life. Pag may nagsabi ng apolitical, sabihin nyo, walang ganun, Mars. No, hindi totoo yun sa ating kasaysayan. Baka sa ibang kasaysayan, sa atin hindi. No? Pangalawa, we need to embrace an evangelical heritage of spirituality. Kanina, spirituality of revolution. Ito naman, revolutionary spirituality. Ang ating kasaysayan as a community of faith, kasama dyan, yung resistance, saka yung refusal na maging sunod-sunuran, to be subservient to foreign control of our ecclesial liberty. At isa sa masasabi nating maningning, no, sa kasaysayan na yan, yung ginawa ni Obispo Nicolas Zamora nung kanang tinayo niya ang Yemelit. Sinabi na may kakayahan na mga Pilipinong manguna sa aming sariling iglesia, no, Iglesia Evangelica Metodista and Las Islas Filipinas, no. Na hanggang ngayon po ay nandirito, no, at nagpupunyagi na maging isang yung vision ni Nicolas Zamora na minsan na tayong pinalaya ni Kristo, hindi na tayo dapat muling magpaalipin pa. And even yung conviction ni Manong Bel Magalit, di ba? Kung noong panahon niya, noong panahon ng EDSA, ang theology na sinasabi sa kanya, dapat hindi tayo lumaban sa gobyerno. Pero nagkaroon siya ng ibang basa, ibang way of being a disciple na kasama at kalakip sa kanyang pagiging alagad ni Kristo, yung pagtindig at pagtayo laban sa mapang-api at mapanikil, no, na diktatorya, no. So ergo, datapwat sapagkat maging matapang tayo to chart our own direction as faith communities in the Philippines, tulad ni Nicolas Zamora. Sabihin natin, kaya natin, no, kaya nating tumayo on our own. And ito'y natutunan ko sa kanila. Pangatlo, ituloy natin, mag-design tayo ng decolonial pathway for discipleship. Siguro ito yung konting comment ko dun sa ating project na political theology, no? Kasi yung split level Christianity nga sinasabi ni Padre Golataw. Ang mas mahalaga sa atin, discipleship. Paano tayo mabubuhay? Alam nang pumunta ko sa isang bookstore. Tapos tiningnan ko yung available na discipleship materials na meron tayo. Kahit kayo subukan ninyo. Inventoryhin nyo anong available discipleship material. Huwag tayong magtaka kung bakit yung ating mga kababayan ay salat, no, sa discipleship na kayang i-weave ang politika sa buhay nila, sa kanilang pananampalataya. Kasi saan? anong materialis. So kami ng mga kaibigan ko, meron akong isa na grupo ng mga katabi, mag-isip nga tayo at magpanimula tayong sumulat ng isang Pinoy discipleship project, no? Kung ano magiging hulman na hindi pa namin alam, no? At ako, personal kong project, yung Kapwaology. Let me share with you, no? Ano yan? Yung mga kaibigan ko na nag-isip ng Pinoy discipleship project na yon, syempre kailangan mong i-test yung ideas kung ito ba makakatayo against scrutiny. So nag-present kami ng panel, nag-propose kami ng panel sa National Conference ng Philippine Studies Association last year, no? At hindi paper, panel yung ginawa namin, no? At magiging available to in the next few weeks, no, available sa YouTube, no. Yung mga topic diyan, paano ang ating theology maging nasa medium ng orality, hindi text-based, no? Si Professor Dr. Neil Benavides ang sumulat niyan. Si Professor B. Braga, sumulat siya kung paano yung Christian ethics natin at yung Filipino values, no? Paano yan magtatagni yan, dalawang yan? Napakaganda kung paano niya hinalaw, no? Yung Filipino values sa yung Christian ethics, no? At sa usapin natin ngayon sa politika, si Binibining Arla Pontamilla, sumulat siya din naman ng paper kung paano ang mga iglesia pwede maging agents of indigenous response to social justice. Hindi ito yung kanina sinasabi ko na yung ating woke mindset, colonial pa din. Nag-isip siya, paano ba hindi maging ganun? No? So, magiging available yung panel. No? Hopefully, yung framework na present namin dyan, na ni-welcome naman and we receive much affirmation mula doon sa mga na panelists din ng Philippine Studies Association, mukhang pumasa naman kami, no? Pwede na namin ituloy ang aming munting na proyekto. Yung binabagit kong Kapwaology, mahanapin nyo sa YouTube yung isa kong talk na ginawa kang kamakailan, kung paanong tinatry kong bumuo ng isang gabay sa buhay kung saan we would have people and non-people, even the non-material beings, no, the world of the spirits can live in a shared planet at yung ating buhay nakakonekta sa isa't isa. We don't have much time, no, to explore that, but ang point ko lang dyan is that I think itong labor, yung bayiging kapwa na yan, no, ang susi para matransform natin yung ating online political discourse today sa politika, no, para mabutas natin yung ating mga political bubbles, magkaroon tayo ng mga holes sa ating echo chambers. Kung ang inyo pong Facebook feed ay puro kulay the same, no, ibig sabihin na-trap na po kayo sa inyong echo chamber. You are not hearing the other side, no? And ako po naniniwala na only a kind of conversation na tinitreat yung other, no, as kapwa can open up opportunities for people to reconsider their options and reassess their political convictions. Yung apologetics, hindi yan magwo-work sa atin. Hindi tayo ganun. The more mo nang salungatin ang Pilipino, the more na magmamatigas. Kasi ang tingin mo sa kanya, hindi kapwa, hindi kalebe, maaring tanga, bobo, whatsoever. Ano? So how do we do that? We need a kapwaology to be able to do that. Okay, so napapahaba na ako, maaring nabobore na kayo. So just a brief overview kung saan tayo pumunta. I give you an introduction kung ano ang decoloniality and decolonial impulse. Meron tayo niyan sa evangelical community. Mag-umpisa tayo how we expand our imagination, and I have suggested 3 imperatives. No? Puro ay, kasi pastor din ako, parang si Pastor Erich, kaya puro ay po yan. No? Introduction, impulse, imagination, saka imperatives. Na po. So, pero dahil ako po ay research major, naniniwala po ko na hindi ko naman sakop lahat ng mga bagay-bagay. Ano? At meron akong mga hindi na cover. I will give recommendations later. But let me recap. No? Sa madaling salita, mag-ingat po tayo sa mga political issue at ideas na banyaga naman sa atin at nagbibigay sa atin ng harm as a people. Isang implikasyon yan, pumili tayo ng mga leaders na magsusulong ng ating kasaysayan, hindi yung ibabalik tayo sa madilim nating karanasan bilang isang bayan. No? Pambihira naman, di ba? Pambihira naman. Number 2, let's come to terms with our colonial mentality and the healing that each one of us, personal ko ito, need to process. Gusto nyo tawagin decoloniality? Fine. Kung ayaw nyo, wag. No? But all means, come to terms with your own colonial wound na binabanggit ni Ate Lily Mendoza. No? Pangatlo, tayo mga evangelicals, let us make use of the advances in Pinoy theologizing. Nabanggit ko po kanina, yung ambag ni Dr. Magay, ni Dr. T, at marami pa pong iba, no? That we can actually use to develop a kind of Christianity na nakaugat sa ating konteksto, kultura, at contemporary issues. Huwag puro systematic theology. Mag-constructive theology naman po tayo. Ang tawag po dito, constructive theology. Iba yung systematic, no? Iba yung constructive na theology. Number 4, let's start with expanding our capacity to imagine differently. Mag-umpisa po tayo sa mga bagay na malapit sa ating bituka. Hindi naman malayo actually. Kung umpisa lang natin. Pang-5, let us be confident of a brave discipleship na willing maglayag, no, sa ibang aspeto ng buhay na yung mga ibang teolohiya ay takot na takot gawin. Diba? Huwag tayo pumasok yan. Magulo yan. Pero ako dating narinig, sabi niya, ang politika parang medyas yan. No? Parang ano yan, medyas. No? Kahit anong puti, pagka tumungtong ka ngayon sa putik, di ba puputikan yung medyas? No? Kaya wag ka na lang tumungtong sa putik. No? Kaya po, ang solusyon do, wag ka magmedyas ng puti. Ibahin mo yung kulay ng medyas mo para hindi hindi ka matakot. Ano? Wag puro Puritans. Magpista tayo, no? Hindi tayo takot sa mga ganyan, no? And ito yung aking recommendation sa further research, no? Ako po kasi dahil creative arts ang aking disiplina, so doon ako humugot, no? So pero yung ibang hindi creative artists, no? Meron pang ibang pwedeng paghugutan. Ito isang halimbawa, and I challenge those who have expertise in this to pursue this, no? Marami sa alam natin to date patungkol sa sino tayo. Yung us, no, has already been negated by updated social science. No? May consensus na po yan for the last 30 years. Isang halimbawa niyan, no, yung tanong na lagi na sino ba ang Pilipino, malalaman ba natin yun, tayo ba ay Malayo, Indones, ganyan-ganyan, no? Hindi na po yun. Expired na po yung ganung ano, no? Example po, ang consensus ngayon is that the people of the Philippines belong to the family of Austronesian-speaking people, no? Sino yung mga Austronesian-speaking people, no? For the last 30 years, sila po yung mga tao, no, na kumalat sa family of people na kumalat mula po sa Taiwan. Hindi po Chinese, no, yung mga aboriginal Taiwan, no, na tao doon, to the inhabitants of Micronesia, Polynesia, at nakaabot pa hanggang Africa sa may Madagascar, no? Yan po yung network na yun. As spread, na kinikilala po ngayon yan as the third epic movement of the Homo sapiens. And the only spread accomplished by the use of boat, bangka. Ano po? Anong implikasyon po niyan? Isang implikasyon po niyan, ibig sabihin, kung meron pala tayong ganyang pwedeng pagkakaunawa, kung sino tayo, pwede po tayo makahanap ng isang na point of unity na lahat ng wika kasi natin sa Pilipinas mula north hanggang south ay Austronesians lahat, no? Itong mga findings na ganito, binibigyan tayo ng isang bagong pananaw na pwede nating makita what brings us together instead of what separates us as a people. Some more implications na pwede nating theologize. Yung bangka, sinasabi po yung katig, sa atin daw po yan na device, no? And it allowed the crossing of oceans even before the era of the Vikings and Magellan. Yung Moana, di ba? Yung ganong technology, no? Austronesian. No? At hindi tayo magtataka kung bakit sabi nila, 1/2 ba o 1/3 ng lahat ng maritime industry sa buong mundo today is run actually by Filipinos. Tataka pa ba kaya? Hindi. Because we are wired to the sea. No? And don't say na yung ating bansa ay bulok. Na yung ating bansa ay bulok kasi hindi natin magawa yung we cannot even get our politics right. Actually, we cannot get Western colonial politics right. At mabuti na lang, no? And to quote si Professor Ambet Ocampo, we are a young nation with an old history and a much older na prehistory. Meron tayong pwedeng balikan. Isa pa, pwedeng i-theologize yung laya. Sabi nila wala daw po tayong wika for yung freedom. Yung laya is from layag. Ibig sabihin po niyan, yung ating sense of ano yung kalayaan, no? Yung ating imagination diyan, nakatali yan sa dagat, no? Maaaring narinig niyo na po yung mga argumento na kasi tayo ay archipelago, tayo ay mga isla, kaya tayo ay watak-watak, no? Kaya ang ating politika din, watak-watak. That's the destituted imagination. Kasi kung iibahin niyo po yung imagination niyo from this Austronesian lineage of history, pag nakakita po kayo ng tubig, Hindi yan paghahati. Yan tubig po ay pagkakabit, no? A bangka mindset will see the sea, not separating us, but actually water as the clearest indication of what binds us together. We are bound by a shared sea wherein all of us belong as a people from the north to the south. So masasabi ko po bilang pagtatapos, mahalaga na nag-uumpisa po tayo from a position na ina-affirm natin kung sino tayo at ano ang ating kakayahan. Sa halip na ang starting point natin, yung panghihina ng kalooban. Ano? At kaya ang ending ko po dyan, huwag po tayong mamatakot na kulayan ang ating politika. Dahil ang buhay, mas masayang may kulay. Salamat po ng marami.
Thank you, Professor Ray, sa iyong napaka-kulay na presentasyon. Working nga sa atin, no, kailangan talaga nating magpanibago at allow natin ang Holy Spirit na mangusap sa atin bilang Pilipino. Pero bago ang lahat, siguro maganda rin makinig tayo sa isang batikan sa kanyang journey bilang isang Kristiyano. Ang ating responder for tonight ay si Reverend Mariano C. Apilado. He has served in the ministry of Jesus Christ continuously since 1957. He has a formal degree from Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee, on Doctor of Philosophy in Church History and Historical Theology. His service has included local church pastoring in the rural areas of Ilocos Sur, La Union, and Pangasinan. His pastoral ministry also included servicing the Cosmopolitan Church Manila, Silliman University, United Church of Christ at the Crossroads in Davao City, and the Church of the Risen Lord, UP Diliman. He was president of the United Christian College in San Fernando, La Union, and the Union Theological Seminary in Cavite. He has lectured and continues to lecture on church history, historical theology, contemporary theology, third word theology, and pastoral ministry. Though now formally retired, having served continuously in the ministry of Jesus Christ for 65 years, Reverend Mar continues to write daily reflections on revolutionary spirituality. He is a contributor to several books on theology, ministry, and third world theology, and has authored 7 books. And also, a number of these books are in process of publication. His special area of interest has been and continues to be on incarnational theology. That is, how theology serves the interest of people as it incarnates the redemptive reality of God to serve the liberating message of God. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us all welcome Reverend Mar Apilado. Nakamute po kayo, Reverend Apilado.
Anyway, napakalawak naman itong presentation ni Reverend Lemuel. Mahirap mag-umpisa kung saan mag-umpisa sa aking reaksyon. Siguro ganito na lang ang gagawin natin. I would like simply to relate to you my theological journey. Starting when I was young, 7 years old, until now 85 years old. And I'd like to compress that in at most 20 minutes. When I was 7 years old, I lived in Camansi, San Fernando, La Union, about 5 kilometers east of San Fernando. At that time, the Americans
The Americans had just taken over San Fernando La Union in their attempt to recover the North Luzon and the Philippines from the Japanese conquerors. And they made our barangay their dump site, dumping ground. May sabihin, yung mga sobra nila at ayaw na nila ay binubuhos niya sa amin. So I was 7, 8 years old at that time, and I thought it was the best garbage scavenger. You scavenge cans of itong how do you call the beef? Oh, corned beef, corned beef. Sarap yun. Kasi yung mga Amerikano, once they have taken maybe 85% of the content of a box, they dump this away. So I would recover those. Ang masarap ang corned beef. And also at that time, I was able to read for the first time magazines like Saturday Evening Post, Times, Life, and other reading materials. And so I told my father, Pa, pwede ba ako na lang maging garbage scavenger for life? Because masarap doon eh. Mahihira. Maganda ang trabaho ng garbage scavenger. My father, who reads only grade 3, and my mother, who reads only grade 4, said, no, Mariano, you better study and study and study so that you and the people of the Philippines will not be garbage scavengers for life. So I studied and studied and studied and studied. Unfortunately, I think God has endowed me so with certain knowledge so that I graduated valedictorian in high school while working as a janitor. And I even was editor of our school paper. I was president of the Junior Republic. And I felt very, very much inspired having done that. And then I prepared for my studies in theology, took 2 years liberal arts, went to Union Seminary, and finished Bachelor of Theology. And you know what? Ang saya-saya ko. Naging cum laude pa ako. But that was only the beginning. Because later on, I got married, and with ambition in life, I went to the Union Theological Seminary to further my studies and finish Master of Theology. After 2 years, yes, I went to Vanderbilt and got a Doctor of Philosophy degree. There was a possibility because my advisor was appointed a special director of mission studies in what is that university beside Harvard? You know what that university is? Maybe Ray would know what that is. But I saw so that we could start a study of Asian theology, because at that time wala pang studies on Asian theology. And but I talked to my wife, and you know what? We gathered together as a family with our 2 children. Sabi niya, I love my native land, Philippines. In short, we came back to the Philippines and answered the call of Silliman University, which is probably one of the best Protestant universities in the Philippines, whose language is English. Parang napagaganda ang kanilang English. And since I just came from Vanderbilt, ang saya-saya ng mga estudyante. Because itong pastor nila, ay magaling sa English. No? After 7 years in Silliman, I was called to my college, which granted me associate in arts, and where I work as janitor. So I went there, and the title of my homecoming was from janitor to president. Can you imagine that? No. And then I worked one special interest that I like my college to become the best college in the north. This was located in San Fernando Union, and after 3 years, our college was awarded the first accredited higher education school in North Luzon. So I was very proud and saying, okay, wow, the first accredited school in North Luzon. And then my rival teachers, my rival schools began asking, who is this accredited? Ayun, ma'am. Sabi nila, that is Mariano Apilado, yung janitor. Huh? Yung janitor president? Our faculty members were very, very disappointed kasi kakahiya naman yung president nila, janitor. So I told them, just don't be discouraged because I just stand up there in public, sabi ko. And nobody can challenge me being a janitor. But at the same time, nobody can challenge that I am a doctor of philosophy in church history and historical theology. So from there, I went to Union Theological Seminary. You know that seminary in Dasmariñas, Cavite, which probably is about as good as the Asian Theological Seminary in Quezon City. But it is older. And there I stayed for 14 years. After that, I went to Davao. When I went to Davao, I was pastor. What I remember was that in Davao, I would go to the market and buy our food stuff in the family. It was there that I learned how to speak Visayan. Because I never learned to speak Visayan in Silliman, which was English. And that probably was one of my first lessons in, anong topic natin ngayon? No? What's our topic?
Decolonization po.
Yes, it was probably in Dasmariñas and in Davao where I learned specifically how to decolonize my education. Kasi dito ko napag-aralan ang salitang Bisaya. And I never learned that in Silliman. Okay. And then after that, after staying in Davao for 6 years, I was privileged to have been the pastor when the church built the biggest UCCB church in the whole Philippines. 1,400,000 pesos of that cost was contributed by a man called Digong Duterte. The point I'm trying to share with you, my friends, is that my journey of life may not be as exciting as the journey of Ray Lemuel, but it is an attempt to understand how one can be as good and as prophetic and as knowledgeable of what it means to be decolonized by going back to where the people are. And I like the presentation of Reverend Ray because he concentrated on three things. He said that we must understand our food system. And his favorite is halo-halo. My favorite is the Ilocano pakbet. And for your information, you can invite me. I will demonstrate how to cook the best pinakbet in the whole world. I learned it from my wife. But that's one of the things that Reverend Lemuel is saying, that we need to understand our food tastes so that we will be able to understand what it means to be decolonized. And we need to understand our kapwa, our other Filipinos. And for this, I would like to suggest that we understand what it means to be the best. What is the term the best in Tagalog? Anybody? Suka, what is the best in Tagalog? Or Ray, what is the best?
Mahusay po.
Huh?
Mahusay. Pagiging
No.
mahusay.
No, the real Tagalog for that is,
Galing.
huh?
Pagiging magaling.
No, ubod.
Oh,
Ubod is the best. Ubod ng kagandahan like you. Ubod ng kagalingan like Reverend Ray and Reverend Aldrin Piñamora. Ubod yun. But do you know that ubod has the best, is the best lumpia ubod. But it is also the best acronym for what can become the beginning of Philippine attempt to understand what is our topic today? How to understand the theology that is fighting and how to understand decolonized theology. Okay, why? Because ubod means is an acronym for the Filipino. Ubod, what is ubod? If I can remember correctly, what ubod means, it is the acronym for United because of our diversity. And that could be the best introduction to our becoming more and more united to understand our being decolonized. Because when the colonizers came, first the Muslims, and then the Roman Catholics, and then the Protestants who are liberals, and then the Protestants who are spiritualists like the PCEC, okay? And then the Koreans and so on and so forth. They're all coming to the Philippines to colonize us. And we are trying very, very hard to decolonize ourselves. So what I'm trying to suggest, my fellow Christians, is that we use the value ubod as the acronym for the beginning of looking for a best way to cultivate and pursue our Filipino decolonized theology when we can join together, ubod, united because of diversity, so that we can all contribute to the attainment of a better Filipino theology. Yun. So yun. So food, kapwa, and fruit. Siguro naman. Don't limit your fruit to coconut and chico. There are many fruit available, and I am very, very surprised and disappointed, and of course, very wasteful. Why? Because you go to many places in the Philippines and you see dropping from ripe Indian mangoes, spoiling and spoiling and spoiling. We are not doing our best in order to gather together this fruit in order to make them suka, or at least wine. The point, my dear friends, is that we don't have to go to any places in the Philippines, but challenge is one of us to contribute to the cultivation of the best of our resources, the best in our food, the best in kapwa, ubod, and the best in the fruit. Not only chico or coconut or other kind like kaimito, lumboy or duhat, and so on and so forth, but all kinds of fruits, so that we can really, my dear friends, come out with a good, faithful conglomeration or cultivation or putting together a decolonized theology that uses all kinds of Filipino values, Filipino fruit, and Filipino people. I would like to end, my dear friends, with a suggestion that we go back to the Bible. That the message of the Bible. I'd like to thank Lemuel Crizaldo for using my term revolutionary spirituality, because I have a book called Revolutionary Spirituality, which is a publication of my dissertation. And right now I have 8 volumes of Revolutionary Spirituality that puts together reflections on what it means to be a Filipino, what it means to be a decolonized Filipino, by using our own stories, our own terms, and our own models. So I would like, my dear friends, to go back to our biblical roots. The biblical roots being 1 John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Note that in John 1:14, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory as of the glory of the only begotten Son of God. We decolonize. We work out the decolonization of the Philippine theology by going back to our biblical roots, that Jesus Christ is Word from the beginning, and that he was God in flesh. And I'd like also to suggest that you look at Luke chapter 18 and chapter 6, verses 18 and 19, which was the original message of Jesus Christ when he first came out. How do you read that? The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach good news to the poor, to feed the hungry, to give the water to the thirsty, and to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. My friends, we should not get out of the biblical roots if you want to decolonize. We cannot decolonize politically. We decolonize by going back to our roots. And then, Second Corinthians chapter 5, verses 18 to 19. It says that the law, can you read that, Suka? First Corinthians and Second Corinthians 5:18. Come on.
Hold on, sir.
I adore the biblical understanding of the Asian of the roots of Lemuel Crisaldo. Jesus, God has appointed us to become reconcilers among all people in the world. And our task as sharers of the good news of decolonization is not to destroy the unity of the Filipino, but to unite the Filipino, because the Filipino, insofar as the Apostle Paul was concerned, is that he has entrusted to us the ministry of reconciliation. And finally, 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 15 to 16. Maybe you can read that, Suka. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 16. And with this I will end. What does it say? Maybe si Kwan will read it. My good friend Aldrin Piñamora. What does it?
Okay, let me read it. Okay, 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 16.
15 and
Keeping a
16.
clear conscience.
No, 15 and 16.
15, okay. But in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord.
Okay,
Always
period.
be prepared.
The message is the next sentence.
Yeah, always be prepared to
Always
give an
be
answer
prepared
to everyone
to give an answer to everyone
who asks you
who asks
to
you
give the reason for the hope that is
to
in
give
you.
reason for the hope that is in you. That, I believe, is our battleground. Now, when we talk about faith and politics, it is because you would like to give reason for everyone that in the Christian faith, there is reason to believe that the hope of the world is in the Christian faith. And therefore, be prepared to give reason for everyone who asks you the reason, the hope that is in you. My dear friends, I would like to end my reflection there that our political understanding, our decolonization should never, and I'd like to underscore that, should never get out of our biblical roots. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mar, for your very, very incisive reflections and your reminder to us that we should never get out of our biblical roots, because it is the reason of why we must decolonize. So we will go to the question and answer portion, and siguro I will just do this in order of how the questions was posted in our Facebook pages. Right. So my first question is coming from Tim Ngo. He asked, how can we decolonize in the midst of interconnectedness that has been brought about by globalization? Okay, siguro, Ray, you first, and then Dr. Dr. Mar.
Okay, so sa akin, ngayong mas madali na para sa iba't ibang tao sa buong mundo ang magdikit-dikit magsama. Parang ito sa Zoom. You can have all kinds of people in the Zoom, right? all the more you will find the need to decolonize yourself. Hindi ko malilimutan sinabi ng isang African theologian, si Kwame Bediako. Sabi niya, sa hapag daw ng conversation sa theology, no? Nandiyan iba't ibang lahi, iba't ibang tao, no? Magkakaroon ka lang ng boses kung mag-articulate ka ng experience mo ng Diyos nang galing sa iyong sariling kultura at karanasan. Otherwise, uulitin mo lang yung sinabi ng iba. So how can you decolonize in the midst of globalization? All the more, because all the more you are pushed into a globalized world, all the more you will find the need to have a sense of grounding. Sino ka ba as a person? Yun po ang short kong sagot.
Dr. Mar, how about you?
Okay. First of all, Dr. David, it's been a long time. You look more chubby now. Dr. David, you are the guru of decolonization. First of the Asian Theological Seminary and others. Do you remember the African saying, until the lion knows how to tell a story, the story of hunting will always be told by the hunter. Okay, that in essence, my friends, is your challenge of decolonization. Be able to tell your story. Whether you are a lion or a tamaraw and being tamed by colonialists, be able to tell your story. And that's the reason, my friends, that I told my response by telling my story of my life. Because hopefully it gives a glimpse of why I am like this. And by the way, may I promote something, Dr. David? This is the book that I'm talking about. Revolutionary spirituality. Okay? And then the latest is divine spirituality seeking human excellence. Now, we can only decolonize and overcome colonization if we believe in ourselves. And part of the greatest obstacle, my friends, for telling our stories is that our language is English. May I give you a brief anecdote. In 1967, the counterpart of the Asian Theological Seminary for the Association of so-called liberals were meeting in Hong Kong, and there was a request for stories of Asian theology. And the lecturer was lamenting the fact that insofar as he knew, there was no Asian theological expression of any consequence. And then then question answer. So I stood up and spoke in Ilocano. Okay, spoke in Ilocano, telling the story of my life, telling the story of theology, and so on and so forth. And then the presiding officer said, Dr. Apilado, we cannot understand what you're saying. And unanimously, the ones who were there, exactly, if Asians tell their stories of decolonization, will anybody understand? if we speak our own language, not English. Thank you.
Wow. So we have to be courageous enough to tell our own stories, because unless we tell our own stories using our own language, we will not be. Decolonization will be a very difficult process. So question again, decolonization, whether in social science or theology, is a growing narrative that has been in the last half century or so. One of the concerns is that those wanting contextualization still have, as mental furniture Western scholars, how rooted are we actually in the life of those at the bottom of the cultural divide? Are we actually learning from them? And then the next question is, how can our nation and churches decolonize when our leaders and we ourselves at time place a very high value on foreign education? Wow, very, very big questions. Dr. Apelado, then Ray.
I can give an example. As I said in my brief introduction of myself, my last formal assignment was at the University of the Philippines Church of the Risen Lord. At that time, I was 84 years old. Can you imagine? They got somebody to pastor the Church of the Risen Lord, an old man called Mariano Apilado. I think they got tired of me after 2 years. Now, atin-atin lang ito ha. My wife died in 2016. And so I am now a bachelor again. Right now, I am in San Gabriel, La Union. For those of you who are familiar with it, San Gabriel is the meeting point between the Igorots in Bontoc and the Ilocanos in La Union. That's why there was a Bago tribe that came out. I am now here in San Gabriel to understand what it really means to be decolonized, because San Gabriel is colonized by Ilocanos. And mind you, Ilocanos are very bad colonizers. I think Reverend Lemuel Crizaldo referred to this. Part of the reason that a certain candidate seemingly is front runner right now is because he is the son of the best colonizer of the Ilocanos. That's why I am here in San Gabriel to understand what it really means to be a minority. Because for us Ilocanos, we are the best people in the whole world. Nobody is better than us. And we look down on the Bagos, and that is very difficult to understand because the Bagos are from the mountains and we are in the lowlands, and Ilocanos look down on them, Jesus Christ. So the point I think I'm trying to raise is that I think wherever we are, we should try to understand what it means to incarnate Jesus Christ as a way of decolonizing the people in the area. Thank you.
Ray?
Okay, ako ang sagot ko naman dyan is that, kanina naikwento ko yung aking kwento about not being able to read directly from my language, which is yung Tagalog. No? So, mag-uumpisa yan sa acknowledgement of a wound. Pag hindi mo na-recognize yung colonial wound, that there was something that is aching in you, na mayroon dapat sakit. No? Ako, ang naging sakit sa akin if I cannot read in my own language, which is in Tagalog, no? Kasi ako ay Tagaluzon, no? Sabihin, I cannot think in my own language. And I despaired on that. Because I can only think from the language of another people.
Yeah.
Oo. And if I think in the language of another people, I would not be able to catch up with them. Right? Kasi I will be mastering what they are already, who they are. And there's also nothing I can share to them. And that sense of woundedness, kailangan maramdaman mo yun, no? Yung sense of woundedness. At doon ka mag-uumpisa. Kasi lahat naman tayo ay produkto ng sabihin nating education that is heavily na-shape, no? By the Western model. No? Bata pa tayo, pag nagsalita ka ng Tagalog, may bayad na piso. Di ba? So, lahat yan. Ano? So, hindi na natin dapat sisihin yun. Given na yun eh. Ang dapat na ngayon eh, how do you move forward? So, I think nag-uumpisa yan doon sa recognition na meron something in you that is aching. Doon mag-uumpisa yun. No? Meron dapat kirot at sakit sa kalooban mo na something in you is missing. O yung ginamit kong term kanina, destituted, ni walang halaga, ni walang saysay. Kasi hindi siya galing sa labas, so wala siyang silbi. No? Hindi siya pwedeng ilaban. No? Weak nga ang tawag ko kanina, weak. Pero sino nagsasabi sa atin nun? So, I think doon mag-uumpisa yun. No? At kaya ang sinadjust ko kanina ay mga pwedeng tuntungan kung saan tayo pwedeng mag-umpisa. Sabagat na ni Reverend Marie, binanggit ko yung pagkain. No? Kailangan natin palawakin na we can imagine differently from the way we were not trained how to think in a certain way. At hanggang doon lang, kasi orthodox lang yun. Pag lumabas ka doon, Nola Salum, Ecclesia, nakalimutan. Outside this, there is no salvation. Huwag tayong maniwala doon.
Maraming salamat, Ray. Para naman palalimin ang ating conversation pa, nais ni Dr. Melba Magay magbahagi ng kanyang kuro-kuro tungkol sa globalization at contextualization kasi nandito rin naman ang ating usaping decolonization. Gusto rin magbahagi ni Dr. Melba Magay. Dr. Melba Magay, kayo na po.
Salamat sa presentation ni Ray, At mabuti rin na nandito si Dr. Apilado. Gusto ko po yung libro ninyo when it came out many years ago. Ang comment ko lang dito sa mga discourse na ganito is kahit na tayo na gusto ng contextualization, sa totoo lang, ang mental furniture natin ay galing sa West. Ako inaamin ko yun. And that's why for 30, 40 years now, talagang very consciously self-reflexive ako. In other words, tinatanong ko sa sarili ko, ito ba ay talagang galing sa kaibuturan ng aking katauhan bilang Pilipino o napulot ko lang sa mga binasa ko? No? And I think this is something na lahat kayong mga theologians should start thinking about. Kasi ang problema, ang sensing ko, kahit those of you who are thinking context, no? Sa totoo lang, galing kayo sa England mag-aral ng theology. Whether you like it or not, you are framed, no, by the discourse na galing doon. So, importante yung self-reflexive tayo. Pangalawa, so I think and that is how, tama rin si Reyna, you can actually stand globally only if you know who you are. Maganda yung one of the things na gusto ko sa mga Africans, no? They drink from their own well, sabi nga ng isang Latin American. In other words, hawak na hawak nila yung kanilang mga proverbs, yung kanilang mga karunungang bayan. Tayo na hindi natin alam yun eh. And we glossed over them as if they are narratives ng una pang panahon, wala tayong oras dyan. When actually, ang maganda sa mga Africans, marunong sila, yung idea nila ng Ubuntu, I am because we are. Yung mga ganyan, yung issue ng kapwa, na actually, ang problema natin, We never other people. Sa atin, shared palagi ang identity. Pag nakita kita, kapwa-tao kita. No? Hindi ka guys sa Japan. 20 years ka na doon, gaijin ka pa rin. Yung mga Chinese, ang tingin sa'yo, foreign devil. Pero ang Pilipino, ang tingin sa'yo, kapwa. So, ibig sabihin, hindi ka other. So, itong mga concepts ng otherness, no, maririnig mo sa Amerika, no? Kahit yung mga nagsasalita tungkol sa decolonization. Ayoko ng mga ganun kasi sa totoo lang, if we are listening intently sa kultura natin, wala tayong mga ganung konsepto We don't other anybody. In fact, meron nga tayong word na saling pusa. In other words, kahit na somebody does not measure up to the marks of what it means to be a member of some unit or community or family, sama mo na kasi tayo ay mga, kahit na saling pusa, tayo ay inclusive. Yung mga ganun, ano? So I think siguro kahit yung mga ano natin, the way, yung mga tools natin for discourse, medyo lumayo na tayo dun sa mga, the way ang social science has shaped itself sa West, sa halimbawa. And i-mine yung ating lingwahe, yung ating wika. Totoo yun, na all of us, in a way, mga Inglesero. Inglesero ako. And that's why it took me 30 years to be able to preach sa Tagalog na hindi nagta-translate. Noon, palagi ako nagta-translate. Dahil ang intellectual language natin, English, whether we like it or not. Pero, dapat very conscious tayo, no, as people who are supposed to be shaped by the English language. Very conscious tayo na paano ba tayo talaga dapat nag-iisip? Ano ba yung mga mental tools natin na talaga, and you can only find this out kung tayo ay babad sa yung tinatawag na bottom ng cultural divide. Let's face it, doon tayo Once you get through the university system, nandun ka sa top ng this very thin fringe of the cultural divide. Kaya nga hindi tayo, kahit yung mga NGO, na mga we don't make sense dun sa baba. Bakit? Sapagkat hindi tayo pumapasok sa kanilang universe of discourse. We keep talking about human rights and free democracy, etc. Mga ganon. Samantalang ang mga Pilipino, they are one step removed sa mga ganong konsepto Pero very empathetic, no? Halimbawa, paano na move itong movement ng people power? Namatay kasi sabi ng mga tao, hindi ka nag-iisa. In other words, na-move yung damdamin. Si floor contemplation, the same. Doesn't matter kung ikaw malaking tao o mababa. Merong ganong solidarity na hindi nakikita ng mga intelektual. Akala nila very fractious lang tayo. Hindi totoo yun. O ngayon, itong mga rally ng Lenin, panay volunteer yan. Kung nag-isip tayo ng pagkakaisa, yan ang pagkakaisa. You have one sentiment that is enabling people to come together. At hindi politics yun. Hindi politics. Damdamin para sa ating kasaysayan, para sa ating mga pamilya, at para sa ating kinabukasan. So, I think ang punto ko lang, importante siguro na malalim yung pagtingin natin sa ating mga sarili. And to have the ego strength na, sabi nga, I think I remember, nabasa ko noon. Sabi niya, we are most universal when we are most personal. Pinaproblem natin halimbawa yung pagka-personalistic ng mga tao. Sa akin hindi problema yan. Kasi totoo yun, spiritually, when we are most personal and we speak personally, yan, maganda rin sila yung nag-umpisa nun sa kanyang decolonization. The truth is, when we are most personal, we also are most universal. We have something to say to the rest of the world. Kaya lang, kung di tayo self-reflexive, tapos we keep quoting and yung ibang mga Western scholars, even about contextualization, it's not that wala tayong mapupulot sa kanila. Meron. I have been mentored by some outstanding Western scholars. Pero at the same time, dapat very strong yung self-identity at ego strong. Mabuti nga si Dr. Apilado. Salamat po sa inyong pagpapaunlak. And he has also pioneered some thinking dito, what it means to have a revolutionary spirituality. Siguro, dapat iniisip-isip natin ngayon, lalo na sa panahong ito. What does it mean to be Filipino Christians who actually have a historical significance when we're thinking revolutionary spirituality? Paano tayo talaga nagiging subversive precisely because of our spirituality? Hindi dahil sa some political discourse that we have picked up somewhere. So yun lang po.
Thank you, Dr. Melba. Marami pa tayong questions, pero ang questions na lang natin for tonight is only for 2 questions. Ito po ay question for our presenter, kay Ray. The presenter mentioned epistemic disobedience and epistemic insurrection. May I request some clarifications? What should we turn our back to? And where should we, as Filipino people, lodge our epistemic obedience to?
Ako ba muna? Patito ka.
Yes, Prof. Ray. Sa'yo po.
Yeah, oo. Actually, may nabanggit ako kay tatlo eh. Kasi yung epistemic is just a fabulous way of saying mental habits. The way you think. So, isabihin, yung tendency mo, yung preoccupation mo, kaya nabanggit ko yung 3 pagkain, yung sapin-sapin, is a shift from a preoccupation towards control and uniformity to being comfortable with diversity and differences, no? Yung halo-halo is a mental shift from a preoccupation time. Hindi natin kailangang isettle yung contradiction kasi yung paradox sa atin okay lang yun, no? Kaya naghaharap hindi natin problema yun, di ba? Sabi nga kaya ni Mamelba, meron tayong concept ng salim pusa. Hindi mo kailangang isettle kung in or out kasi pwede kang may salim pusa sa space for you, no? So mental habits saka yung adobo sa mental form, you want to grasp the form of everything. Kaya nga gusto mo ng sistema. The epistemic mode should be, di ba, merong napabalita, official adobo recipe. Walang ganong official adobo recipe. Walang makakagawa nun. So that's a colonial mind trying to make an official adobo. Hindi natin kailangan yun actually, di ba? So a fluid mind. So yun yung mga epistemic shifts na kailangan natin. At if you would like to, pero hindi, ang pinick up ko nga dyan, hindi yung sa South American na disobedience eh. Mas pipinick up ko yung sinabi ni ating sariling atin, si Ate Lily Mendoza. Ang sabi niya, kailangan natin ng proseso to heal our colonial wound. Kasi disobedience, medyo galit ka pa nun eh. Ito nag-uumpisa ka sa'yo. No? Sino ka bilang tao. No? So isang commitment ko dyan. No? Pag gumagawa ako ng paper, binibilang ko yung aking references. Ilan ang kinote kong Pinoy. At kung meron ako mako-quote na Pinoy, hahanapin ko yon instead na mag-quote ako ng iba. Bakit? Tulong ko na yon para maisulong natin yung ating diskurso. That kind of a commitment. No? That's also an epistemic habit. No? Kasi tama naman si Madam. Pwedeng sumulat ka ng paper o book about contextual theology. Tapos ang bibliography mo, lahat foreign, di ba? Ano klase yun?
Yes, thank you. Itong question na ito na yung ating last question. Maaring sagutin din ni Dr. Melba, ni Dr. Mar, na-disconnect lang siya, and also kay Ray. Ang last question is, given what you said about our halo-halo culture and personal makeup, in-affirm naman dito ni Dr. Mar na sabi niya yung ubod daw, di ba? It's unity in diversity. And Can one of the main ingredients of the shape of a decolonized Filipino continue to include our Western heritage and mindset? Paano po kaya yun? Paano natin marireconcile yan? Ray?
Kaya ako nang mauna tapos si Mar. No? Alam mo ang beauty natin, ng mindset natin. Wala tayong dualism. Yung either or. Hindi natin kailangan pumili between West or not West. Hindi yun ang mensahe ko ngayon. Ang mensahe ko ngayon is to transcend that because we can transcend that. We are a people who have the capacity to hold multiple realities, multiple things all at the same time. Kaya kahit saan mo tayo ibato ang Pilipino, mabubuhay tayo. Ibato mo sa Dubai, ibato mo sa Middle East, ibato mo sa Africa, ililipat mo sa ibang trabaho. Kaya natin ng multiple, no? That's our gift. No? So yung hindi natin kailangang maipit between that kind of a Western heritage or not. My point is we can transcend that Western heritage and we can even enrich ourselves by embracing who we are as a people, not just the things that we have learned along the way. At like adobo we have modern adobo, pero we also have our internal control. Ano yung pitfall adobo sa hindi totoong adobo, di ba? So, meron din tayong capacity to do it, and that is magical, sort of supernatural gift na meron tayo.
Thank you. How about Dr. Melba? Do you have anything to add before we say close our show?
Well, first of all, yung old metaphor no, ng bamboo dancing, very basic yun sa ating personality as Filipinos. We are used to multiple influences. Hindi tayo nagugulo dun eh. We are graceful bamboo dancers in the clash of cultures, whether pre-Hispanic, Muslim, ganyan. In other words, o Amerikano or whatever, no? Now globally, nasa 200 countries tayo. So, in other words, hindi himala o to be wondered at na mga Pilipino are able to blend wherever, no? Because we are able to dance gracefully through the clash of cultures. Hindi tayo na ano doon. Very, tayo, that's why you're very flexible, we're able to adapt everywhere, no? At accommodative. In other words, hindi natin tinutulak yung mga foreign influences, hindi natin tinutulak yung kahit ano. Yung sinasabi ni Ray kanina about halo-halo, isasama mo na lang siya. No? In other words, hindi mo siya itutulak just because foreign siya. Sama mo na lang siya. Ganon. Yung sinasabi ni Enriquez na inaangkin mo na lang. Ganon ang mga Pilipino, inaangkin mo eh. Ganon. But you bring with it, yung synthesis na yun, you bring with it something that actually culturally is more elaborate and richer. Yan ang tinatawag sa anthropology na cultural elaboration. Usually, ang more advanced level ng isang bagay is the cultural elaboration. Yung pansit. Yung ating mga pansit luglog, yung ating mga palabok, wala, and you do not find that anywhere in the world, no? Galing lang yan sa China, yung noodle, it's an Asian, pero we make our own. Sa totoo lang, inaangkin natin. Yan ang tawag inaangkin. Hindi natin tinatapon, inaangkin. And I think that's a very good way of, especially in a global age, it's a very good way of looking at it. It's not that we are, yung lumabas na tayo ron sa mga issue ng mga pristine na makultur. Walang ganun eh. I think we just have to say na ang maganda sa atin, we are actually able to acquire all kinds of things and make it our own. Meron tayong unique na flavor sa pansit. Yun ang tinatawag na cultural elaboration. Usually, it's the more advanced form. And I think it's important also, siguro, dahil tayo ay mahilig magkapwa, yung ganun. Sa totoo lang, yung sinasabi ni Jesus na loving God is loving your neighbor. Tayo, we always think of others as our neighbor. Hindi lang neighbor, kasama. no? The language that we use, kasama. Samahan mo ko, ganon. Yung kasama is a national institution. I can create anything basta ako may kasama. So, I think it's important na wag na nating ang problema ginagawa nating minsan dahil academic tayo, no? We problematize many things na hindi naman dapat. Napulot din natin, it's a mental habit we get from the West. We become problematic about many things. Ay, hindi naman ganun ang Pilipino. Ang Pilipino, we just accommodate, we just, and make it a nice halo-halo. Ganun. We are never people na gusto natin lang ng unity na that homogenizes, no? Hindi tayo ganun eh. We never homogenize. We are always at home with the diversity, yung sari-sari ng mga hobby ng ating kultura. We've always been like that. And I think maganda na maintindihan natin muli kung gaano kung akong tatanungin ninyo kasi after 45 countries, I still want to live sa Pilipinas even if it's crazy, no? As a country. Why? Because I think mataas ang level of human index, no? When you're thinking biblical perspectives, mataas ang level ng human index. Whether you're talking, yung emphasis sa relationship. Nalala ko po si Daryl Johnson. He was saying na the very first thing in the universe is relationship. The love between Father, God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Ang mga Pilipino, ganun. Gusto palagi mag-connect. Palaging, hindi ba kayo nagtata kung bakit mapunta lang ako sa isang lugar, sasabihin niya, ay, taga Bisaya ka? Meron ako mga kamag-anak doon. Kilala mo ba si ganito? Sabi ko sa lublog ko. I mean, they're always wanting to connect. No? In other words, kung pag inisip mo yung lahat ng mga basic natin ng mga cultural values, napakataas ng level of neighborliness, napakataas ng level ng compassion. Yun lang mga gobyerno natin talaga ang mga salbahe. No, but you see, they have totally accommodated themselves to Western issues of control, issues of power, ganun. Pero ang mga Pilipino hindi ganyan. Hindi sila competitive, hindi sila napulot natin yan sa labas.
Okay, thank you. Asuka, may I jump in and ask the most important that I will award for tonight, the question that you jumped out of, but you missed. And so I'd like to surface that question to conclude this section, because we have been talking about decolonization mainly on the abstract in so many times. Now let's talk about the practical. How is the evangelical Filipino culture, the Filipino evangelical culture? And so this question was asked by J. Laksamana. Itong kanang question. Maari bang ipakilala ninyo kung sino-sino ang colonial disciples mula sa hanay ng mga institutional evangelical churches? Okay? Sila ba ay nasa mga mega church? O sila ay ang mga Western trained na mga theologians ng PCEC, no? At pastors ng PCEC. So it's really grounding us now to really give our decolonized critique of the present evangelical majority of the evangelical culture in this country. So what can we say? Unfortunately, Dr. Mar is no longer here, but I hope Ray and Melba can sort of jump in and say, and give just a little bit, kamusta tayo? How are we in terms of approaching the unity in diversity, and the sapin-sapin, and the Chico, and the, halo-halo? Where do the mega churches fall in? Okay, and where do the PCEC Theological Commission fall into this whole total picture?
Okay. So, ako na iwan, no? Sa akin mapapunta yung talong na pinakamahirap at pinakamahusay din daw, sabi ni Sir David. No? Una is that kanina nabanggit ko, merong pag-aaral na pwede nga bang maghalo yung decolonial sa evangelical? Kung ang evangelical, yung mindset niya is actually a child of the enlightenment of the Western na project. So, paano siya makakalabas sa ganung na hulma? Ang naging sagot ko is that hulma yun nung naging evangelical sa kapanahon na yun. No, kumbaga, meron naman tayong pwedeng gawing hulma sa ating sarili. Ang tanong, sino ngayon yung naghuhulma sa atin na hindi tayo mapunta sa tamang hulma, no? Ang una ko sagot diyan, by default, alam na natin 'yon. So kasi ang tanong ko nga sa inyo kanina, pumunta ka sa isang bookstore. Tingnan mo yung discipleship material natin. Kanina sabi ko sa ating kasaysayan, nakatanim yung ating spirituality of revolution, no? At yung ating revolutionary spirituality. Anong discipleship material ang merong politics, engaging politics na aklat? Hahamonin ko kayo na pumunta kayo sa book to may discipleship. So, ang magiging sagot ko dyan, sir, no? Ito, kasi marami tayong aklat. Yung aklat ni Ma'am Melba, The Gospel in the Filipino Context, no? Si Ed Lapis, Pagpapahiyang, no? Redeeming Culture Indigenizing Christianity. Si Dr. Ganina, meron siyang Mabuhay, Biblical at Pinoy na Pandama sa buhay. Si Dr. Tim Henner, naging bahagi itong napakahusay na aklat, maganda sa teolohiya. Ang sagot ko dyan, lahat ng mga iglesia, bookstore, publisher, lahat, no, na ayaw mag-display na to, kasama tayong nakatanim sa ating identity bilang isang Pilipino. So, hindi tayo nag-umpisa sa wala. Ang dami nga, marami pa akong wala. Ito lang kaya kong bilhin at available sa akin. Marami pa dyan.
I agree with you, Ray. Medyo mahirap-hirap hanapin din yung mga libro na yan. Talagang minsan hahalughugin mo kung saan ka makarating.
Bakit ganun? Bakit ganun? Bakit kailangan mahirap hanapin? Bakit hindi pwedeng madaling hanapin?
Well, sociologically, merong issues of power dito. Yung tinatanong ni Jay, tungkol sa mga mega churches. Whether you like it or not, globally, those with power can extend their boundaries of influence. No, kaya mga libro-libro natin, marami ang galing doon. Walang power yung mga local na books. No, hirap na hirap yung mga textbook ng mga Pilipino. In other words, yung aking mga libro, lahat nakikita lang sa online. Hindi nga available dito sa Pilipinas. So in other words, ang problema natin, we have to deal with the issue of power. There are people who have the power to extend their global influence. Meron din mga tao who are very rooted sa kanilang kultura, pero nobody, want them. Kasi nga, walang power yung kanilang mga, publishers, yung kanilang mga gano'n. So isa yon, and I think we need to think carefully about this. Na unfortunately, yung mga mega churches ang merong power at sila ang distributor ng lahat ng Western thought na hinahawakan ng mga evangelical churches. And in a way, I'm very grateful sa Lord na I always refuse to do theology. Even if I was under pressure from si Bilder na sa Limbawa, sabi niya babae ka at maraming mga pastor na ayaw ng babae na nagti-theologize. Okay lang mag-Sunday school ka. Pero pag ikaw nagti-theologize, babae ka pa naman. Tapos wala kang theological. Sabi raw ng isang, naalala ko nung panahon, bagong-bago yung Patmos, sabi ba naman daw ng isang leader, Southern Baptist yata, sabi, and who is she? I mean, who is this girl? She doesn't even have a theological degree. Sabi ko, ayaw ko talaga mag-theology. Why? Because I will be colonized twice. English major na ako Ang aking utak is shaped by the English language. Bakit pa ako papasok sa theology? So I would rather sabi ko, know my faith in my own language, in my own conceptual categories. Kaya sabi mo, punta na lang ako sa Cambridge para mag-research. Unfortunately, pagdating ko doon, nobody can help me. Until somebody said to me, merong isang scholar na galing sa Africa, si Professor Walls na nasa University of Aberdeen. So, sinulatan ko siya. He does not know me from Adam. And since then, he has mentored me. And I'm very grateful for that experience. In other words, kailangan na siguro tayo, as of this, sa yugto ng ating kasaysayan, balikan na natin yung ano ba ibig sabihin ng evangelical. Kasi ako, I have always been suspect as an evangelical. Ngayon na nakikita ko yung mga evangelical sa Amerika na nagbabangayan, sabi ko, I don't think it's a good thing to be evangelical if you're in America. So, in other words, we need to rethink again itong mga concepts na napulot natin sa labas. And tama yung inano ni Ray na we need to really construct. Kaya ayoko na ng we need to construct something. And that should come out of our own souls as a people. Kaya ako, allergic ako
Dr. Melba.
Sa ganon.
Yes. Maraming salamat po, Dr. Melba. Mukhang marami-rami pa talaga tayong dapat pag-usapan sa topic. So lang, in the interest of time, maaari siguro magkakaroon tayo ng susunod nata in relation to this conversation. Pero ibabalik ko po ang kung sino na ang nanalo ng ating libro, kay Dr. David Lim.
Wow, we really had a most wonderful speaker and responder. And now with Ate Melba also putting in her inputs. Wow, this has been a fantastic night. But we thank the participants. Your questions have surely enriched our discussion here tonight. But we have to pick only 2 winners. And now, the first question that Suka was able to ask, triggered a most wonderful one. And that's why I like the first winner is Timothy Erwin Ngo. And thank you for winning, I think for the second time now in this series. And then I mentioned already that the second who is getting the award for the best questions for tonight is Jay Laksamana. Thank you for your question that put us on the ground, and we hope that in our last maybe 8 webinars, all of you will continue to participate and follow the footsteps of Tim and Jay as they were able to ask some of the most provocative questions. And may all of us continue to enjoy this series and see you again next Thursday at 6 o'clock for our 11th series.
Thank you, Dr. David. At mula po sa aming Faith and Politics, ako po si Sukha Valdez. Inaanyahan ko po kayong ulit na like and share our Faith and Politics page. Kapag po inyong itong patuloy na sinishare sa ating mga kaibigan, sa ating pamilya, at sa ating mga kasama sa simbahan, patuloy po tayong naglilinang ng ating pagiging Pilipinong Kristiyano at sabay-sabay tayong tatahakin ang paghahanap at pagtatanong sa banal na Espiritu Santo. Ano ba tayo bilang isang Pilipino at bilang isang mananampalataya? At muli po, para next week, sundan niyo po kami ulit po sa Faith and Politics. Magandang gabi po sa ating lahat.
I-level up ang inyong multimedia experience from your church to Light TV, God's channel of blessings. Reach more people for Christ locally and globally. Advancing the kingdom of God through multimedia platforms. I-broadcast na ang inyong audio and video content sa Light TV for free. Reaching millions of TV audiences mula sa digital free TV ng Mega Manila, cable TV nationwide, hanggang sa digital platforms worldwide. Broadcast your ready-to-air TV shows tulad ng talk show, anniversary, preachings at iba pa. Ipalabas ang inyong mga likhang short video clips tulad ng Christian music videos at inspirational videos for free. I-promote ang inyong church events. conferences and webinars, prayer meetings, church services, advocacies, at iba pa for free. At kung ikaw ay pastor or church leader or kahit youth leader, be one of our guest speakers para sa ating Daily Devotion TV show. Ano pang hinihintay mo? Join our media mission journey and partner with us today. And let us all bring people to Christ and be like Christ. Para sa iba pang mga detalye, set a virtual meeting with Miss Jinky Reyes, 0933-359-5039 or mag-email sa marketing@lighttv.ph. Kahit may pandemya, kasama ang mga churches and Christian organization from Body of Christ na aabuti ng mga kaluluwa katuwang ang Christian Media Pillar. Light TV, God's Channel of Blessings.
Para sa digital TV box users in Mega Manila, nag-risk na ba kayo? Follow these steps. Pindutin ang menu. Pumunta sa settings. Piliin ang factory default. Pindutin ang OK sa remote control. Piliin ang yes para kumpirmahin ang factory default. Piliin naman ang auto scan o auto search at hanapin ang Light TV gamit ang up and down buttons ng remote control. For cable and satellite TV viewers, no need to rescan. Para sa karagdagang impormasyon at mga tanong, mag-text sa 0920-974-8575 o tumawag sa 631-0908. Maaari ding mag-email